Hello and welcome to another episode of Geared Toward Gear. My name is Sean and I'm so glad you're here. Thank you so much for joining me. Today we're taking a look at a knife from QSP. I've only ever featured one knife of theirs, and that was the folding karambit. This one though is pretty darn cool, and this one was provided by QSP to the pass around group, and I thought the design looked pretty darn sweet and I wanted to check it out. And there it is. It is called the Puffin, so that's the model name. And a puffin is an animal in our animal kingdom, and they are damn adorable creatures. So if you don't know what a puffin looks like, go Google puffin. Just pause the video now, or don't even watch the video. Just go look at pictures of puffins. So that's the QSP Puffin. And here's the short version. We're looking at titanium and carbon fiber, S35VN blade steel, kind of a thumb hole deployment. Overall length is 7 inches. Comes in at 2.96 ounces. It's going to be for right or left-handed carry, tip up only. And the price tag is $138. Let's get a couple size comparisons going as usual. And we'll use the smaller of the kind of standards, as this is a relatively small knife, being 7 inches overall. So there it is compared to a mini griptilian. And we'll bring in the Rat Model 2, as we always do, in orange. I don't know why I picked the orange one, but that's become the staple, I guess. So a little shorter than the Rat 2. So kind of a medium-sized knife, right? 7 inches overall. Your blade length is 3 inches and your handle's 4 inches, for what that's worth. So let's get a little more in depth on this guy, starting at the blade, working our way to the right. And I'll give you my overall thoughts as we go through this. And I think some of them may come through just during the course of this review, because I do have a couple issues with this knife, which we'll talk about. So the blade is 3 inches in length. Your actual cutting edge is actually 3 inches. 1, 2, 3. I mean, maybe a millimeter less, but basically you get a full 3 inches and a nice purposeful sharpening choil there. So I certainly can appreciate that. It is a drop point design, as you can clearly see. It's got a flat grind, kind of a medium flat grind. And the blade steel, as I mentioned, is S35VN, which is a great steel. No problems with that whatsoever. It does have that opening hole that I alluded to, the sharpening choil, and the finish on this is satin. It's kind of a belt satin, and it looks pretty good. But what I also like is that on the flats here, they rubbed it, either hand rubbed it or machined it, kind of going in the opposite direction, which looks nice. It kind of gives it that hand rubbed satin look. So I like the look and the shape of the blade overall. Really digging that. In my opinion, being a flat grind that's that kind of low, not a high flat or a full flat grind, I'd personally prefer that they did a hollow grind on this, but that's just my preference. You may disagree, but I think it should have been a hollow grind. So let's talk about the handle. The handle is 4 inches in length. It's made from titanium. It has a carbon fiber inlay. And the inlay is done really well. The carbon fiber itself is quite nice. It sits a little bit proud of the titanium, and it has a contour to it. But the inlay is done quite well in that there's no gaps. Quality control overall seems to be pretty darn good. So no complaints at all on kind of the fit and finish of that carbon fiber. And I think it looks pretty sexy up against that titanium. This knife does come in a couple different colors as far as the titanium is concerned. You can get it in kind of a bluish colored titanium, and you can also get this totally kind of murdered out, where it's black titanium, carbon fiber, and a black blade. It does have kind of a decorative pivot, as you can see there, which I personally don't prefer decorative pivots. I prefer to have a Torx adjustment on both sides. If you want to put a pivot collar around it that's decorative, I'm totally cool with that, but I personally prefer to be able to adjust both sides with a Torx tool. So that's kind of one complaint for me personally. So let's talk about the action, and this is where it kind of lost me. So it has this thumb hole, and I've been opening it with a pinch and slow rolling it like that. I've seen one video where a guy was spider flicking this thing like there was no tomorrow, just rocking it out every time. I've been able to thumb flick it open a couple times, but it's taken so much practice to do that. Opening this knife, deploying the blade is not intuitive, and for me, in my hand size, it's not comfortable. And I can't do it at all around the tripod. I have to go off camera to even get close, and I typically fail several times before I get it to actually open. And I'm struggling right now. I got it that time. So for me, the deployment is really not good in that it's not intuitive. And at least for me, I can't spider flick it, period. And I can barely get it to flick open with my thumb, maybe 2 out of 10 times. So your mileage may vary, and I'll be very, very interested because I think I was one of the first people in the group to get my hands on this knife. I'm going to be super interested to see what other people's experiences are, to see if maybe I just suck at opening knives or my hand size is just too big for this particular model. But I find the deployment to be not good. The action in terms of how smooth it is crazy. This thing is so freaking buttery smooth, I can't even tell you, which is a shame because I can't open it the way I want to. I have to pinch it with 2 fingers, slow roll it, and that's how I open it. Disengaging it and closing it is a pleasure because it is so smooth, but I feel like this design is begging for a flipper and or a thumb stud. So kind of the way I would phrase it and what I wrote on my notes is that this knife is a perfect execution of an imperfect design. I think they just made a couple poor design choices, but they executed everything flawlessly, if that makes sense. The D10 is good. It's probably like a 6 out of 10, something like that. It's just not intuitive and it's hard to open. So for me, I'm just not digging that really at all. And so for that reason, I probably would not carry this knife or necessarily purchase it. And that's me, right? That's maybe my inability to properly operate a knife. I don't know. But the deployment for me was a total bummer. The lockup is incredibly strong. It's a frame lock, as you can see. Titanium with a steel insert for your lock face. It locks up at like 25%. Super strong, solid as a rock. No blade play. Really, really excellent lockup. And they did a great job contouring that frame lock. It is so easy. This is one of the easier frame locks to disengage that I've had in a very long time. So I would be fidgeting with this thing nonstop if it was a flipper, just nonstop, because closing it is an absolute pleasure. And even pinching it open and doing it that way is still quite fun. I just wish I could flick it open a little better than I can. But crazy smooth and crazy strong on the lockup. The centering also is dead perfect right down the middle. The texture is basically non-existent, and that's one other kind of gripe that I have with this knife, is that being a very smooth titanium, there's really no texture to this titanium. It's incredibly smooth, and having that smooth carbon fiber and no jimping, it got a little slick in my hand a couple times when I had a little bit of perspiration going on, and so for that reason, I think it would have been wise to add just maybe a little run of jimping on the spine of the blade even. Even just that probably would have been good enough. Is it necessary for EDC? Maybe not, but I think being so smooth overall, it could stand to have a little bit of texture on the spine of the blade. Let's talk pocket clip. So it's tip up only for right or left-handed carry. So there is your pocket clip. It is a milled titanium. Excellent design, easy in, has good retention, but not too difficult to get it out. And there's the spot where you would reverse it. It also does have a titanium backspacer that is just perfectly flush in every way with the frame of this knife. So again, I feel like it's just the perfect execution of what I feel is an imperfect design. There's also a lanyard hole there on the back if you want to run a lanyard, and it's pretty generous in size, so you could run pretty much any kind of lanyard. Overall, it's very comfortable. Again, it's slick, but for EDC, the ergos are pretty good. It feels good in my hand. There is virtually no hot spot, even in a strong hammer grip, maybe a very mild one. but definitely comfortable. It's a comfy knife for sure. It's just a little slick for my taste, and again, the deployment kind of was the deal breaker for me. So that's my overall thoughts on the QSP Puffin. It performed very well. I think it would have performed a little better if it was either a higher flat grind, a full flat grind, or a hollow grind. But it did everything that I asked it to do in terms of cardboard, paper, packaging, letters, fruit, all that kind of stuff. It powered through everything. So for EDC, it's going to get you by just fine. If this is your taste and if you can figure out how to deploy it properly, it could be a good option. And with those materials, titanium, carbon fiber, S35VN, I think the price is kind of in line with what we typically see. Sometimes you can get those materials cheaper, but definitely not a bad offering. Again, I think it's just an imperfect design. So that's my overall thoughts on the QSP Puffin. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Thank you, QSP, for providing it. And again, stay tuned to hopefully see some other videos in the near future from some other YouTube channels. And I'll link those as they come out in the description of this video, so you can see other people's opinions on this knife and see if they're able to deploy it better than I could. And I will also add that there were some discussions, as I've been told, at Blade Show about the deployment on this knife. So I don't know if there will be a second generation or a second version that will address that, either adding a thumb stud or a flipper or what. But currently this is the QSP Puffin, $138, titanium, carbon fiber, S35VN, all that fun stuff. It was fun to have. I'm glad I got to check it out. And again, this is why I love these pass rounds, is that I can get this thing in my hand, try it out, and make a more educated decision for myself personally as to whether or not I want to purchase a knife. So thanks again, and I'll talk to you soon.